Yeah, like the one of the joys of hunting for me is I don't know what you're interested in exactly, but is about that kind of knowledge. Like like it's knowledge from having been in a particular place and knowing patterns of deer and knowing by the way they hold themselves whether they're about to run or if they're talking or if they're calm and it's a I mean, a lot of that is you're just watching these things up close, and sometimes you're not inclined to shoot them, either. And it's and when you do shoot them successfully, which when you let an arrow go, it's because they're for me, within 20 yards generally.
Yeah.
I've taken them out to about 30, but now that I switched from a compound bow to a recurve, the compound bow has wheels on both ends.
Oh, does it make it
And so
easier?
you come to draw,
Yeah.
and the wheels allow you to sit at 35 pounds instead of 70 pounds.
Oh, okay.
So I can hold that draw, and that's what I was saying before about the challenge of being even in a tree, or especially on the ground, with a leery animal to use a gun. All you have to do is have the gun in place, or even a crossbow. It's already cocked.
Yeah.
And it's in place, and so your motion is done, and once you see the deer coming into your space, you stay absolutely still, and then you pull the trigger. That once you pull the trigger, you're all right.
Yeah.
But with archery, you got to watch how they're watching, and then you got to watch. Often they move in herds, especially after they've been hunted by. After muzzleloader season comes in, after other hunters have pushed them around a lot, you'll see they'll stay in tight groups, and the mommy doe is doing the work, especially for the bucks and for the other deer, of looking up in trees and certainly scenting very well all the way along. And so sometimes you'll have a deer within sight and an easy shot, and what you want is quartering away and a calm deer, never shooting at a running deer with an arrow, and they have to be looking away in order for you to make that motion, right? Because I've been in a position where even when I have good cover behind me, and I've got I'm among things, so my silhouette is not sticking out. Just that motion is not a natural motion that they encounter, so they'll bolt. So it's a little bit like the book dealing thing, in that book dealing I got into, like 2004, I finally started selling, and managed to buy pretty much as all the stuff I liked.
Yeah.
And so books that are around, I've almost handled all the books, almost all the books in the Maryland area, of the larger publishers. And tried to sell most of them, which is silly because most books these days go for $2 on Amazon. But you get to know publishers and titles that are interesting. But originally I was just taking them all in because I was like, hey man, it's a great book, I might read that, and then I put store it and list it, and I feel the same way about the hunting, is taking it in, being in the space. The ritual of what T.S. Eliot calls the violet hour in the wasteland. The violet hour, and as that sun is going down, is just magic. It feels like you're in between, living and dying, and certainly between night and day. But at that time when when nocturnal animals start moving, and you're watching the sunset, or you're adjusting yourself, or you've been there for 5 hours.
5 hours in one spot.
Yeah, sometimes. That's meditative,
Yeah.
And for somebody who's as hyper as I am, how to move around in class so much, it's a medicine, And it used to be, I didn't have anything. I mean, I finally, maybe 10 years ago, started carrying a beeper out, and so I could be beeped, because I'm the major kid guy. To retrieve the kids or whatever, and now now, of course, I got to sell, and even started this last season looking, chasing online stuff, and it's a different world,
Mhm.
and so I've got to really keep it at bay. It's nice for safety to have it around
Yeah.
in the pocket. You fall out of a tree or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
It's clever.
Absolutely. When did you start hunting?
I started. My daddy wasn't much of a hunter. He went after crows one time, he said, and mostly missed. And crow shooting is, it's supposed to be about keeping down varmints and helping out the farmers.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys who really do that stuff, that's hot shooting. And they get a pile of crows.
Jeez.
I'm not sure about that. I've never done that.
Mhm.
As I say, not much into gunning. My dad certainly wasn't. I grew up in Grosse Pointe in East Detroit, and
Oh, really?
my mom's dad was a hunter, and he picked it up after World War II. He learned how to stalk, I think, overseas, and he was a dentist who became a medic, and when he came back from the war, I think he really missed the quiet of being out in the field, and happened to be brother-in-law with the first Fred Bear dealer. Fred Bear was a pretty famous white man archer
Oh, yeah.
who started the Fred Bear line of archery, which my uncle, great uncle, and a man who Floyd Eccleston, who was a contemporary of my grandpa's and a pal of Fred Bear's, they would go hunting together.
Oh, yeah.
And this is recurves, early recurves, a lot of longbows.
Oh, wow.
So a stick and a string. And he would take, my grandpa would take, there's pictures of him, newspaper accounts of him taking fox, with
Oh,
a bow.
wow.
It's called, fox the hard way. But, yeah, so I guess I was about 12 to answer that question. That I asked if my grandpa would take me because I was interested in. I'd always been interested in the woods, and he was hunting up in central Michigan. Here's Detroit. This is the Michigan map, and central. Where is it? Yeah, Lake Huron, Lake Michigan, Detroit. Yeah, Detroit. Mount Pleasant, which is flat
Mhm.
and rather pleasant, but not a lot of mountain. A lot of cornfields, and when I first started hunting, to see a deer at all in the wild, really was the wild, was an amazing
Yeah.
experience. And now, the hunters have become fewer, and the habitat has been reduced, such that the deer are more madly populous than ever. I mean,
Mhm.
like 3 or 4 times, maybe even 10 times, they say, as many deer in the States today than there were in colonial days.
Really?
And it's not because the Indians were thinning the herds,
Mhm.
it's because the habitat that we're providing has a lot of openness, and then a lot of cover along the edges,
Mhm.
and a lot of corn and a lot of soybeans.
Yeah.
So the deer are thriving, and that's another reason I really enjoy hunting locally, is it lines right up with my ecological sensitivities, which are that the understory is in big trouble, especially around our reservoirs, Loch Raven, Pretty Boy. Maryland, as you know, doesn't have any natural lakes.
Oh, yeah.
We've got reservoirs, and we've got the understory just browsed down, so you'll see browse lines, as far as a big deer can reach on
Mhm.
his hoofs. I mean, they'll actually get up on their hind legs.
Jeez.
And they'll pick at stuff, but you see heavily browsed areas. There's nothing green
Mhm.
anywhere up to about 5 feet, 7 feet off the ground, 6 feet.